When life is hard, finding something to be grateful for feels impossible. But what if the breakthrough you're waiting for doesn't happen after the praise, but because you praise? Today we're uncovering the exact blueprint that Paul and Silas used to thank God in the middle of their suffering. And it's a blueprint that you and I can use today. This is the video that'll show you what gratitude looks like in real suffering, not those Instagram perfect moments. Well, hey friend, today we're wrapping up our 4-part series on gratitude. Over the last few weeks, we've talked about how to create a lifestyle of gratitude, what to do when you don't feel thankful, why gratitude can sometimes feel fake, and what to do to make it real again. And today we're going to wrap up with how the Apostle Paul found reasons to be thankful even in prison. My name is Tammy Rotzel from the website Footprints of Inspiration and a Faithful God podcast, where I teach busy women how to grow closer to God one easy, intentional step at a time. And today's episode may just be the encouragement you need today, so let's dive in. So the story of Paul and Silas in prison can be found in Acts chapter 16, and we'll refer to that passage as we go through today's episode. Now, before we talk about Paul and Silas, let's go ahead and put something out there, something that needs to be said and spoken. The truth is, there are seasons when gratitude feels impossible for every one of us. And if you're finding that, you're not alone, my friend. We get so gridlocked in the pain, so gridlocked in the fear and the worry and trying to figure out how to make it through and trying to find something to be grateful for is pretty tough. When life hurts, being thankful isn't something that comes easily. It's not our first instinct. Not because we don't love God, not because our faith is weak, but because the pain has a way of clouding our vision. We're not thinking about the blessings. We're just trying to survive the moment. And that's exactly why this story with Paul and Silas is so incredibly important. Here's the thing. In this particular passage, Paul and Silas weren't in a soft, quiet room with this soft, beautiful worship music playing. They had just been arrested unjustly, beaten, stripped and humiliated, thrown into the inner prison, the darkest cell within the prison, and chained to the prison floor, that cement prison floor. Think about that for a moment. They had just been beaten, stripped, and chained to a floor where they had to sit on all their wounds. They weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. They weren't allowed to get up and stretch their legs. They were chained to the floor. They had absolutely nothing to be grateful for. This wasn't just mild discomfort. This was actual trauma, physical, mental trauma that they were suffering. And they had no idea what their future held. And yet, in verse 25, we see Paul and Silas lifting up praise. When it says about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. They weren't praising God because they felt grateful. They had all the warm, fuzzy feelings and emotions inside. No, that's not why they were praising God. They were praising him because they trusted God. And that's the first thing we've got to understand about their story, that it wasn't about their circumstances. They were praising God because of who he was. Now, Paul and Silas' story actually shows us something that our modern day world often forgets. Biblical gratitude begins with obedience long before we ever feel it, long before our emotions catch up. They weren't faking it. They weren't pretending everything was okay. They were choosing to praise him based on God and his character, on what was true about God, not on their circumstances, not on the fact that they were in a hopeless situation. Now remember, throughout this series, we've talked about biblical gratitude, and there are 2 parts to biblical gratitude: honest pain and chosen peace. Now this is the same posture that Paul chooses in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18. Again, we've talked about this throughout the entire series, but in this verse it says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. It doesn't say give thanks for all circumstances. It doesn't say give thanks only when you feel it. No, it says give thanks in all circumstances. Paul lived this verse long before he ever wrote it. And this is where gratitude actually shifts from performance, from just checking off those good Bible study girl boxes because you know that's what you're supposed to do, to an actual spiritual weapon. Praise becomes our spiritual weapon in those hard times. The moment that Paul and Silas started to pray, something supernatural happened. And we see it in verse 26. Suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. All at once, all the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. They praised, God moved, chains were broken, and doors flew open. But listen, here's what I want you to understand and what I want you to see in this story. Their praise didn't earn the miracle. Their praise made room for God to work in their circumstances. Did you catch that, my friend? Their praise didn't earn the miracle. Their praise opened the doors for God to work in their circumstances. And that, my friend, is the blueprint. When you thank God in the middle of your hard times, it shifts your focus. It pushes back that spiritual heaviness that you're feeling, and you create space for God to come in and move mountains. When you start with praise, not afterwards, but before the breakthrough happens, God will meet you every single time. How do I know that? Because I know how big our God is. I know it because I've seen it over and over again in my own life and in my students' lives. When you choose to praise before, it completely changes the battlefield. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to share with you the 3-step blueprint that Paul and Silas used in this moment. But before I do, I want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, be sure to hop on over, grab my free Thankful in God 30-day scripture challenge. It's one verse delivered to your box every day, and it'll help you build a gratitude habit you can actually stick with. It'll anchor your thoughts when you're feeling heavy, which we've all been there. We've all experienced that. And it teaches us how to thank God in real life circumstances. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to hop on over to footprintsofinspiration.com/thankful. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/thankful. Of course, I will put a link for it in the show notes for you below. All right, now that we've got that foundation set for finding gratitude in the hard times, let's dig in and uncover that 3-step blueprint from Paul and Silas, something that you can start right now today. Number 1, acknowledge the pain honestly. Biblical gratitude is going to God honestly, right? Acknowledging the pain honestly and going to God with our chosen praise. Paul didn't hide his suffering from the Father, and neither should you. You see, because biblical gratitude is not denying your circumstances. I think so often we think that the only way that we can really feel grateful is to deny what we're going through. And that's not at all what this is. You've heard me say this all throughout the series. Biblical gratitude is bringing your honesty, your whole self to God, just as you are. You can say something just as simple as, God, I'm hurting. God, this is painful, but I'm choosing to trust in you. Simple. Doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to be formal words. You don't need a formal sitting. Just whispering up that simple little prayer all throughout the day. Now, this is the same posture that David held in that previous episode that we talked about in Psalm 13, when he says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? He was honest. David brought his heartfelt honesty and pain to the Lord. He didn't hide it. He didn't slap a smile on. He didn't pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. Now remember, if you haven't listened to the other episodes in this series, don't worry. I'll put a link for it in the show notes for you below so you can go back and listen to those as well. But my friend, honesty is the doorway to true biblical gratitude. Step number 2. When your circumstances are bearing down on you and there's nothing to be thankful for as far as the circumstances are concerned, go to God and thank Him for who He is. Focus on His character, not your circumstances. It can be something as simple as, God, thank you that you are faithful. Thank you that you are here with me. Thank you that you never waste my pain. See how that shifts things? We take the focus off our circumstances and put our focus on the one who knows the way out. We put it on God's character, the one who never leaves us. And this simple practice is what moves from that emotional exhaustion that we've all felt, and it moves us into spiritual steadfastness. When we choose to be grateful for God's character, to be thankful in all circumstances, we step off that shore and we go further and further to where we really start to experience that growth and transformation, that deeper relationship with God. This is pivotal, my friend. When we start choosing to thank God, even when we don't feel it, but to thank Him for His character in the midst of our pain and suffering, that's when everything starts to change, my friend. And step number 3, offer a sacrifice of praise. In the Old Testament, a sacrifice of praise, and anytime you hear the word sacrifice, it costs us something. In fact, the word sacrifice means the act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. Gratitude in hard times costs something. It costs your pride, your expectations, your timing, and a lot of times it costs your comfort. That's totally normal. It doesn't feel good. But this is the kind of gratitude that breaks chains. It's the kind of gratitude that shifts perspectives. It's the kind of gratitude that strengthens your faith. And it's the kind of gratitude that opens the door and allows God's miracles to work in our lives. And this is exactly what Paul and Silas were offering up, a sacrifice of praise that cost them something. Now, to answer your question before you even ask, no, choosing gratitude does not always shake the earth. It just doesn't, my friend. But it will always shake something within you. You'll feel more anchored, less overwhelmed, more aware of God's presence, and more confident in His care. Nothing may change around you, but everything will begin to change within you. That's what biblical gratitude does. So let's take a moment to recap that 3-step blueprint modeled after Paul and Silas in their time in prison. Number 1, acknowledge the pain honestly. You don't have to hide your feelings from God. He's not looking for picture perfect moments for you to come to him. He wants you just as you are. Number 2, thank God for who he is, not for your circumstances. You don't have to thank God for the hard times, but thank him for who he is. And number 3, offer up that sacrifice of praise. I promise you, my friend, when you start walking this out, you're going to send me an email or you're going to drop in the comments below and say, Tammy, nothing has changed, but everything has changed. When you start offering up that sacrifice of praise to the Lord, everything within you begins to change, my friend, and it is incredible. So my friend, if you love quick lessons like this, if you're looking for a safe place to walk out what a real faith walk looks like with women who get it, if you're looking for consistent encouragement, guidance, and support, then I'd love for you to join me in the Grow Your Faith community. The Grow Your Faith community is where women just like you are learning to build consistent, meaningful time with God, drop the guilt and perfectionism when it comes to their faith walk, and grow step by step with ongoing support. Here's the thing, my friend, you could keep wondering if you're the only one struggling with these issues, or you could walk alongside women who truly get you and are finding freedom one step at a time. Now, the doors aren't open right now, but what you can do is get on the waiting list so that when they do open, you'll be the first to know. Hop on over to footprintsofinspiration.com/GYF waitlist. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/GYF waitlist. And don't worry, if you're out running around, I will drop the link for you in the show notes below. My friend, as we wrap up this final episode in the gratitude series, I want you to remember, you don't have to feel thankful to be thankful. You just have to take one honest, intentional step at a time and choose praise. Take these 3 steps this week, and then I'll meet you back here next week for the next episode of A Faithful God podcast.